Métis Nation-Saskatchewan says it has made the difficult decision to reduce mental health services due to federal funding cuts. The cuts will directly impact citizens who rely on the support and members of the team. But the announcement comes at a time when the M&S also confirmed it is spending just over $7,000 a month for office space in Ottawa. It's one of our topics for this week's Truth in Politics panel. With us as always, Jennifer Laewetz and Niigaan Sinclair. Jennifer, Niigaan, great to see you both. Jennifer, we'll start with you and your thoughts on Métis Nation-Saskatchewan cutting mental health and addiction services and the timing of it.
I would say that I'm really not surprised. Everybody kind of knows by now with my history on this panel that there's a lot of frustrations growing with the Métis Nation-Saskatchewan. And this goes back to what we've been kind of talking about since the beginning, that this is a government that is in the capacity building stage and realistically needs to be creating a lot more long-term sustainability and, protecting the core foundations of what good governance is. And they've been relying quite heavily on these funding agreements, and this one specifically, which is obviously a short-term funding agreement that they would have known is sunsetting. But instead of, doing some preemptive work on this, it seems like they kind of just are throwing this on all of their citizens now, being like, oops, sorry, it's ending next month, best of luck. I've been receiving emails, messages, calls from mental health therapists around the province now that are really concerned because they have a lot of people that have been accessing this program. And I think it's time that we start talking about what it looks like to actually build foundations, especially in mental health, which is the backbone of any good governance. And it seems like it's just being treated as a program and it's just being cut and everyone enjoy the next steps from there, basically. So.
Right. Niigaan, is this a bad look given M&S just approved what they called a historic $200 million budget for the year and is also spending $7,000 a month to rent an office space in Ottawa?
Certainly, it's indicative of yet another huge missed opportunity for M&S. Jen has done a very good job sort of documenting blow by blow the different ways in which the M&S has reduced free speech, reduced relationship with community, and then really just turned inward to build more profile for local politicians, for people who are working within the organization than actually serving people. The fact is that when you cut mental health services, you're actually cutting something that is central and a core to us as Indigenous peoples. I mean, we are not just bodies and we are not just, constituents, but vote. We are entire communities with minds, bodies, hearts, spirits, and anybody who spends any time working with our teachings, with our traditions, knows that if you cannot serve the needs of mental health, really, it doesn't matter how many apartments you provide, doesn't matter how many social assistance checks you provide, because ultimately what you're doing is you're becoming part of the problem. If we don't deal with the mental health issues, which then goes directly to issues involving justice, involving domestic issues, involving the child welfare system, I mean, all of those things come directly from mental health, not physical health. And of course, while we do worry about things like diabetes and other things, it's the mental health that's really the center core. So what really I think is the M&S has really lost its way. It's lost its vision, and it's really not listening to the people who are most dedicated to the organization. And if I could just give a little kudos to Jen. Of course, I may be a bit biased that we're on this panel every week, but it's pretty upsetting that somebody so dedicated to the organization would not be listened to. And if she's just one, I imagine all the other ones who don't have weekly panels that can talk about this.
Exactly, yes. Well, our reporter Leanne Sanders has a story on this on our website, and M&S citizens who she spoke with say the program being cut, they're angry by it and blindsided by the announcement. Jen, could this have been better handled? Should M&S find the money for mental health and addiction support?
To answer your first question, absolutely, it could have been handled better. I think we're seeing, I've been saying this from the beginning, an organization that's in complete disarray and their communications is just bad. I don't think we should be too surprised because we are hearing, APTN did post the story about their Ottawa firm cutting ties with them, which that firm does a lot of that communications and public affairs work. So I think that they're now drowning. And, Bev Fullerton, who is the minister for this, has been silent. Like we're getting, a press release yesterday or a statement, sorry, a little bit too late. You've already caused that panic and that upset with everybody. And to come out with a statement after the fact that's kind of blaming underfunding is just, it misses the mark. And they could absolutely be using money in better ways. I know, there's a lot I don't talk about online, but I can tell you a lot of ways that they could be saving money and investing it into better areas. And maybe they should start there. And I think it's time for the local presidents that do make up the governing authority over the Métis Nation to start actually paying attention to this and calling it for what it is.
Wanted to move on to another topic. Niigaan, you're fresh off the plane from a trip to Iqaluit and the Inuit Educators Association conference, and you wanted to talk a bit about what you saw with housing up there.
It is truly baffling, upsetting, shocking to see the issues of housing in Iqaluit. And of course, this is just a tip of the iceberg when you look at the issue of housing in the north, in Nunavut. I, of course, I'm on panels every week, different networks, channels. You hear about the issue of housing in Nunavut, but to truly see it firsthand, there is a 20-year waiting list in Iqaluit for social housing. There are people that are 13, 14, 15 people deep in social housing within the city. It's on top of that, the city is now facing a major crisis involving water. It can't expand. And that's created an infrastructure crisis, which is that what they're getting is they're appealing to prefab houses that are always short term, and they're building relationships with countries like China. If Canadians are truly worried about sovereignty and worried about relationships with countries like China who have human rights abuses and other social challenges, this is Iqaluit's an emergency situation, all hands on deck. And I think that I stayed in a hotel that had been pre-assembled in China and then recreated within on the ground there. And that's just is one indicator of an infrastructure crisis that's just exploding at the seams in Iqaluit. So I just wanted people to pay attention to it. I wrote it in my newsletter this week, if you get a chance to check it out on the Winnipeg Free Press website. But if you get a chance to check out the issues of Nunavut, that's worth paying a few of your internet clicks when you're interested in that issue.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there, but big thanks to you both and safe travels.
You guys.